Hello, everyone. This is Doug Davis, broker in charge at Crombie Realty, and here with another session of Ask Doug. And this is an interesting one. Starting November 1st of this year, the properties that are going to be sold, condos, houses, residential properties, will need to disclose a number of things on maps. So I don't know where all the websites are going to be. They probably haven't been prepped, and that's why they have a November deadline on it. But here's what's going to happen. So this is mostly because of climate change, mostly because of sea level rise, but they've added a couple of things that don't have anything to do with it, which I think are a good idea. They've been in the disclosure statement, but we haven't seen a map. So let me tell you what we're talking about. So there's first one is the special flood zone, and special is special. It has you can't just look at flood zones. You have to look at a particular website that speaks of special flood hazard zones. And we do know where that one is. And the best way to disclose this to the buyer is to make a map, a color map, and have them sign it. If you're not doing that, if you're a broker listening to this and then you're not having your buyer sign a copy of the map, I don't know how you're going to prove that you showed it to them. And if they come back to you later and say, hey, you never told me, and it was a statutory requirement that you explained to me special flood zone, you're not going to, you won't win. You won't, if you don't have a signed map, you're going to be out of luck. So I would suggest that you have the buyers look at the map, you go over it with them, and have them sign and date it. Okay, so special flood hazard zone. So that's relating to streams, mostly streams, overflow, canals, drainage. The website's pretty good. They've got unbelievable detail on all of Oahu Island. It's amazing how much time has been spent putting all of that together. Okay, so that's first one. And then second one, this one's new to me, but the boundaries of the noise exposure area shown on maps prepared by the Department of Transportation in accordance to federal aviation regulation, such and such airport noise compatibility planning for public airports. Well, I believe all the airports are owned by the government here, so that would be all of them. So noise, so it's a map of noise. Decibels, I would imagine, coming from airplanes and how that would spread out on the ground where housing might be. So if you're selling, for example, out in Eva Beach, the airplanes go right overhead. So that would be a nice thing to know if you're a buyer and planning on living there, and maybe you don't like airplanes flying over you 24/7. So maybe you go and look at the house, maybe you go and do your inspection and nothing flies over. And then they buy the house and then, oh my gosh, planes are flying over all the time. So that's a great idea, I think. Okay, so that's number two. Third one is the air installation compatibility use zone for Air Force, Army, Navy, or Marine Corps airports. So that's similar, but the compatibility use zone is really how the developments should happen on and around airports. However, I think it's kind of too late because they're already there and the housing's already been built. But I think if you were a buyer and didn't know that, well, let's say you buy out in Kaneohe Bay, it's pretty quiet for the most part. But boy, when they're doing their practices, there's an airport there. So maybe you'd want to know what that is. So that's map number 3. Number 4 is anticipated inundation areas for tsunamis. That's a good one to know about. You want to know how far inland you can run if it's the last minute, so that you would be out of harm's way, or drive, or where you should go. Obviously, you want to go up a mountain, but you don't have to go that far. So you want to know if your house is in an exposed area, if that was to happen. There's surprising areas, things that you wouldn't think of. My sister actually saw the tsunami come in at the end of the Alawai Canal where Waikiki Library is. So it comes up streams and canals. So you don't normally think of that. So looking at a map, which would show canals and streams, how far they go up the stream, you wouldn't anticipate that. So that's a good thing to have. Okay, that's number 4, the tsunami map. And then number 5, the last one, is the sea level rise. I call it the 3.2 map. That's what we are supposed to disclose, what it would look like if the ocean were to rise 3.2 feet. So they have a map that can go to various number of inches or feet, and you can play with that, and they have an interactive map that will disclose that. And they're going to tag this. These maps will need to have a TMK number associated with it. So you can punch in your address or TMK number and see if the map hits your property or not. So that's a great idea, because that is very specific. And if there's any gray zone or anything, then the benefit is to the owner, the seller, if it hasn't been defined properly by one of these maps. So that's an interesting little extra on there. And then they're tying, not a map, but they're tying another thing to this same bill, is if you're on the shoreline, you need to disclose your permit number, permits for your seawall, or your burrito bags, or anything that's along the ocean shore, if it's permitted or unpermitted. And if you have any violation, and if you have fines that have not been paid, or expired permits, or unpermitted structures, all associated with the TMK number. So that's going to happen as well. This all again starts November 1st of this year. So there you go. So that's something new, hot off the press and coming down the line. It's all about disclosure, and most of it's about sea level, but you do have 2 things about noise. So there you go. I hope that was interesting, thought-provoking. And if you have other questions, love to hear from them. If you have property needs, management, selling, buying, love to hear from you. Okay, until next week. See you then.